When we were putting together the program tonight, we thought it'd be very, very important to have a real live patient come and talk to you all who has been through the screening, diagnosis, and treatment process. And fortunately, we have Mr. Joe Sheehan here tonight. It's been my honor to be his doctor. Joe's a wonderful guy who's going to, I'm sure, give you some real valuable insight. Joe is a retired FBI agent, 31 years in service of the FBI, following a few years, I'm told, in the Navy. He works now as a private investigator. And it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Joe Sheehan.
It really is a pleasure to be here tonight. I really appreciate the opportunity to come and speak with you. Dr. Yandi and Dr. Rosenthal had these really nice PowerPoint slides that I think were very, very informative. I was going to bring my PowerPoint slides tonight, but they consisted of me walking around my home last February in a beat-up bathrobe carrying my catheter bag with me, and my wife didn't think that was such a good idea. So you're not going to get any PowerPoint from me. I think I'm probably preaching to the choir when I talk about the need for prostate awareness and certainly the need for PSA testing. As Dr. Naftalin mentioned, I'm a retired FBI agent. That meant for the 30 years I was with the Bureau, every year I was required to get an annual physical for fitness for duty. Beginning in 1982, in connection with the blood work that was done at my annual physical, I was able to spring an extra $10 out and I could get a PSA test at the same time. I have PSA tests going back to 1982. Every year when I had my PSA test, typically it was in the range of 0.8, 0.9, 1.1, then back to maybe 0.7, then maybe back to 1.0. But it stayed in a very, very narrow range from 1982 until 2008. After I retired, I still continued to get an annual physical, and I had a PSA test as part of that annual physical. I'm bringing this up because of this. When I had my PSA test in the summer of 2008, we're talking just about 14 months ago, that PSA test came out as 2.4. Now, you all know the range of normalcy is supposedly 0.4 to 4.0. Mine was at 2.4, well within range of normalcy, but that represented a tripling of my PSA in a 12-month period. So I became very concerned about that. I talked to my primary care physician about that. He was concerned, and he said, look, let's do this again in 90 days and see if there's some other problem that we might have here. So 90 days later, which was roughly October, less than a year ago, I had a second PSA test done. That test revealed a PSA score of 3.4. So I tripled in 1 year, and I went up from 2.4 to 3.4 in 90 days. I talked to friends and colleagues who knew something about prostate cancer and knew something about the various forms of treatment, and most importantly, knew something about who was really good in this town to handle a prostate problem. And Dr. Naftalin's name kept coming up over and over again. He hasn't paid me a nickel for this tonight, but his name, his name kept coming up over and over again. So I went to see Dr. Naftalin. He said, look, let's arrange a biopsy. So I did have a biopsy on January 5th of 2009. The reason for the delay was I didn't see him until November. We had Thanksgiving, we had the holidays and everything else, and it didn't appear to be that urgent, so the biopsy was arranged for January 5th. Now, between October, when I had a PSA bump, I should say, of 1.0, went up 1.0, I should say, from 2.4 to 3.4, and January 5th, when I had the biopsy, I talked with dozens of men who have had various types of prostate problems, especially prostate cancer. They're undergoing all sorts of different types of treatment. And while my survey certainly was not scientific, it certainly didn't meet any statistical norms, I came away with one general idea, and it goes across the board with the people that I spoke with. If you do have cancer, if you got prostate cancer, that's an organ that can be cut out of the body, and you can get rid of the cancer that way. No more PSA tests, no more worrying about this stuff. You can get rid of it, and you're going to have minimal side effects. So I took that to heart, and I basically made a decision during the period running up to the holidays of 2008 that if I got bad news at the biopsy, I was probably going to go ahead and have surgery performed. And obviously, I'd done a lot of work on the internet, and I'd learned about the DaVinci system, and I was hoping that if I did have a problem, if the biopsy came back bad, I'd be able to take advantage of the DaVinci system. Out of the 12 tissue samples, only one of them showed any cancer cells, but it's kind of like being pregnant. You know, you're not a little bit pregnant. You either have cancer or you don't. I had prostate cancer. Keep in mind that I had prostate cancer when I never had a PSA above 3.4. When Dr. Andy was going through the risk factors, you know, family history and obesity and so on and so forth, I don't have any of those risk factors. Not a single person in my family has ever had prostate cancer. I've stayed 160 pounds for the last 15 years. I eat right, I exercise, I do all the stuff you're supposed to do, and I never had a PSA above 4.0. But January 5th, we discovered, actually shortly thereafter, that I had prostate cancer. There's two things we're all worried about, right? Am I going to have to wear a diaper the rest of my life? And am I ever going to, you know, okay? And we're all concerned about that because that's what you hear about, and that's a great concern. I talked to people who went through the surgery. I talked to some of Dr. Naftalin's own patients who had gone through the surgery. I was lucky enough to have one guy that had it done last summer and another guy who had it done the previous summer. But I talked to several other people who had the surgery performed at different periods of time. And I was generally led to believe that, you know something, it's the incontinence problem, the idea that you have to wear a diaper, that is overblown. That if you listen to your physical therapist, who you're going to meet with before you have the surgical procedure, he's going to give you some exercises to perform, and you'll be able to pretty much, number one, combat the incontinence and eventually totally overcome it. I'll give you an example. I tossed my diapers away approximately 3 weeks after the surgery. Haven't been back to them since. The other thing is the ED, the erectile dysfunction. That is still a work in progress. I'm not going to sit up here and kid around about it. It's been a little over 6 months since I had the prostate surgery. Things are coming along, but it's a slow go. But the bottom line is that I do notice, without getting too disgusting here, we're not in the locker room, but I do, things are getting a little bit better, okay? They're not like they were, although my wife says, hey, they weren't so hot before, you know. So we'll see how that shakes out. Once you think you have a problem, start talking to people, not just people in the medical profession, but get your network of friends. If you don't know someone that has prostate cancer, I guarantee you know people who have prostate cancer. And it's amazing to me the number of people that I spoke with on the telephone who I'd never met before prior to that phone conversation, but we had a mutual friend, and they were very open with me and very, very, wide open about what I could expect from the standpoint of pain, suffering, the ED, the incontinence, the whole shebang. We're sort of a club, you know, and we tend to, there's a degree of empathy, but there's also a degree of, listen, let's just get out there and support each other and help each other. Let's talk about pain just 1 second, then I'll get out of here before I become a pain. This robotic surgery, the DaVinci machine, my surgery was performed very early on Friday morning, the 13th of February. I was in the hospital all day. It was released very late the following afternoon. When I got home, I took one pain pill, which was on Saturday night, February 14th. That was a great Valentine's Day around my house, believe me. I took one pain pill that night. I've never taken another pain pill since then. And by the way, I had the prostate cancer surgery on February 13th. I was back riding a bike again on the 1st of April, and I was lifting weights again on the 1st of May. That's how quick I came back from this thing. Now, I'm not saying that happens to everybody. I was very, very fortunate. I had an excellent surgeon. And, of course, he had an excellent patient, so it worked out real well. You know. Thank you very much.